Happy Friday, church. It's Pastor Haley bringing the Friday devotional. I hope y'all have had a really awesome week. And I first just want to start by saying Merry Christmas. Man, I wish it was Christmas. A couple weeks ago, we had a Christmas in July themed youth night, and it was so much fun. We decorated with lights and wore Christmas outfits. And it was so fun to be in the Christmas spirit during a time that's not Christmas season. There's something about Christmas that brings us so much joy and life. And so I wanted to share one of my favorite Christmas stories this morning, and it's one that doesn't have many of the same Christmas characters that we know. There's no nativity, there's no Mary and Joseph, there's no wise men, and it comes from John. John's account of Christ coming into the world is one that we all need to hear for a lot of different reasons, and it starts John 1:1. It says this: "The Word was first." I'm reading the Message version, by the way, so if you're following along, it probably sounds very different. "The Word was first, the Word present to God, God present to the Word. The Word was God, in readiness for God from day one. Everything was created through him. Nothing, not one thing, came into being without him. What came into existence was life, and the life was light to live by. The life light blazed out of the darkness, and the darkness could not put it out. There was once a man, his name John, sent by God to point out the way to the life light. He came to show everyone where to look, who to believe in. John was not himself the light. He was there to show the way to the light." So I want to stop there. When it's Christmas, we like to put out lights. And it's a way to show that the light was coming into the world. Maybe that's not the reason you put up your Christmas lights, but it's really what it should symbolize. The light is coming into the world, and this is what John is writing about. And John is saying that he's come to be a witness to the light. And that's what we're all called to do. We're called to be a witness to the light of Christ moving around us. So take time today, think about how have you experienced Christ's light? Just think about that. All right, we're going to continue. The life light was a real thing. Every person entering life, he brings into light. He was in the world was there through him, and yet the world didn't even notice. He came to his own, but they didn't want him. But whoever did want him, who believed he was who he claimed and would do what he said, he made to be their true selves, their child of God selves. They are God begotten, not blood begotten, not flesh begotten, not sex begotten. The Word became flesh and blood and moved into the neighborhood. He saw the glory with our own eyes, the one kind of glory, like Father, like Son, generous inside and out, true from start to finish." If we want to be our true selves, then we have to recognize the light that is in our world, that is present among us, the one that has given us true life, and accept him. And that's salvation. When we accept Christ, then we abandon our own lives and follow God's plan for our lives, and we are adopted as his children, as his sons and his daughters, and we enter into this new life. But here's the part that I really want to focus on for us today that was very convicting to me personally. So it says that he was in the world. The world was there through him, and yet the world didn't even notice. He came to his own people, but they didn't want him. Here's what's crazy, is that the people of Israel were wanting their Messiah. That was their prayers that they had. They wanted the Messiah to come to save them. And what is interesting is that I'm thinking that these people in the time of Jesus, the people of God, the Israelites, I'm sure that they have heard these really amazing stories from the past of how God has worked and communicated and moved. And so they would have heard these stories of Abraham, of Moses, of Noah. I mean, these amazing stories, King David, of how God was moving. And they would have known these things. And yet, when they prayed that their Messiah would come save them, the Messiah, Jesus, came as an infant, came as this little helpless baby that was totally reliant on his parents. And so I imagine that their prayers were not answered in the way that they might have hoped. Their prayers were not what they expected. God came in a way that they didn't want. God came in a way that they weren't expecting or even weren't sure that they needed. And I think sometimes when we spend our time in prayer, we can go into prayer having in our heads exactly how we want God to answer our prayer. Or we have an idea of how we think God is moving in our midst. And when we do that, sometimes we neglect to see or notice that God is moving right in front of us and it may not be in the way that we expect. And so we cannot notice it, or we can say that we don't even want it. And I think that may be what's happening here. And yet it says that the Word became flesh and blood and moved into the neighborhood. And so today, right now, wherever you are, God is present. God is here. God is moving around us. And we must have the eyes and ears to see. And so we must step out of our expectations, step out of what we think God can do, to not put him in a box, but just be open and willing to see how the Spirit is moving among us. And that is the way that we begin to notice Christ moving around us. It says that, but whoever did want him, who believed he was who he claimed, and would do what he said, he made to be their true selves, their child of God selves. And so, one, we need to want Christ. We need to want him in our lives. And that means we have to be willing to change, to abandon our own lives, to abandon our own wants. We must believe that he is who he claimed. We must believe that these things that Christ did, that this is true, that the Bible is true. And we also must believe that he's going to be faithful, that he is going to do what he said he's going to do. Christ is coming to redeem this world. And sometimes we can lose sight of that, or sometimes we can have expectations for how we want him to do that, or how we want him to move in our lives. And today, as we enter into this weekend, may we be completely open and willing to whatever the Spirit has for our lives, even if it's something that we may not expect or want. I love y'all so much, church, and I look forward to seeing y'all soon. Have a really awesome weekend. Bye, guys.